Merci à tous pour venir aujourd'hui ici. C'est évident que je suis anglophone, pas francophone, mais oui, pour la présentation, je présente en anglais, mais si vous avez des questions en français, on peut parler en français aussi. So, to get right into it, because I tend to ramble on a bit, I'll just show two quick previous works to set the tone a bit for my practice and to give you a sense of where I was coming from when I began the work that you see in the gallery. I don't know if I should look at you or the camera. It's interesting. So the project that I'll begin with, just to give a brief introduction, and if you want to know more about my past work, I mean, you can visit my website. There's lots of information there. The project that I'll talk about first is called Virtually There, and I realized this project in 2010. It began as a bit of I wouldn't say a joke, but just playing around with the Google Earth technology. As I was back in Montreal in the winter, after spending the summer in Banff with my new wife at the time, I was retracing my steps in the Rocky Mountains in Google Earth and recomposing views of the Rocky Mountains. So what began as a bit of a thing to pass the time turned into a serious project. And in 2009, I went on 2 residencies. One at the Gushel Studio, it's called, in the southeastern Rockies, just outside of Lethbridge, and the other at the Banff Center in Banff, Alberta. And it was my idea when I was setting out to do these residencies that I brought with me printouts from Google Earth. I had spent months in advance retracing others' routes in the mountains, and I had figured out where I wanted to make my pictures. So I had 8x10 photographs printed out, and I had GPS tracks from all of these previous routes. And with that information, I set out to make my own views from these same vantage points. So we have on the left the Google view. This is an image taken from the Crow's Nest Mountain in Crow's Nest Pass. And on the right, we have the view that I made. And it's not so apparent in the JPEG here, but the photographs that I make, like the photographs in the gallery here, are with a 4x5-inch view camera. So there's an incredible amount of detail. They're very visually rich, whereas the images from Google are just screenshots. So you start to see that breakdown and discrepancy of information. I like to say it's always sunny in Google Earth. So the atmospheric conditions, this was also part of what interested me in the project, was how the light would change. And I wanted also the project to give a sense of the physical experience in the landscape. So aside from photographs, I also made a bookwork. I had some drawings. I had video. I used these different forms to give a sense of duration and to give a sense of the passage of time, the physical experience in the landscape. And the titles of all of the Google images are the coordinates for my apartment in Montreal, where the images were made. And the coordinates for the actual photographs are the coordinates for where I was standing when I made the photograph, because I had with me a GPS, and every time I would take a photograph, I would mark a waypoint. So I would be able to replay my journey after the fact. And so this was my first project that I began to use GPS with. And while it's not apparent in the images in the gallery, the GPS played a major role in this project as well, the Petrolia project. And I'll speak a bit about that later on. So this is a behind-the-scenes view of my GPS data. And here's what things looked like in Google Earth. The yellow track that you see is somebody else's path. So I downloaded the paths mainly actually from this one individual from Calgary named Bob Spirko, and I was reenacting Bob's hikes in the mountains. So the red path is my own path to the same objective. And here's an installation view from the truck gallery in Calgary in last summer in 2012. And sometimes, I mean, I play with the photographs in different arrangements. I don't like them becoming just diptychs necessarily, because I feel like it's a bit simple to say, okay, here's the Google version and here's the actual version. So I like to sometimes install them as grids, or to have them on different walls, or sometimes in different spaces, so that you cannot necessarily see both of the images simultaneously. And I made this really kind of ridiculous book where I took a 9-hour climb up a mountain called Mount Temple, and I translated that GPS data into a form that replicated a 19th century journal of exploration. So I was reading a lot of books by like Fridtjof Nansen and journeys to the Arctic and Antarctic poles, as well as books on early mountaineering. And so I used chapter headings that reflected the chapter headings that would be found in these 19th century journals of exploration. So when I reached the summit, which is this page here, it says "At last." And then when we were coming down from the mountain, somebody, not in my party, but another person fell and broke their ankle and were stuck in a rock chimney and required a rescue. So it was like, you know, a impending catastrophe. So I used these chapter headings to kind of reflect the trip. And so that's, you know, a brief preview of that project. And then the second project, which I realized, you know, just south of here, in 2011 as part of a show at the Foreman Gallery with Ursula Beeman and Christian Philip Mueller. They were the other artists involved. I did a series of photographs of the cut line in you know, the eastern townships. So not within the town of Stansted, but just outside of the town of Stansted. I found you know, somebody who was willing to let me cross their property to get to the boundary, and over the course of 1 year, I made this series of pictures of the cut line, which separates Canada from the United States. And the photographs are not always taken facing the same direction, so sometimes Canada appears on the left, and other times it appears on the right. And it's important to me, and what fascinates me and continues to fascinate me about this border is that it's simultaneously extremely ambiguous in places. The territory looks the same on both sides, yet there's this line which is so clearly demarcated, which separates the two countries. And I also found this, the actual standing on the cut line, you're in kind of this no man's land, because it's property which is neither Canada nor the US. It's controlled by the International Boundary Commission. So this 6-meter wide swath is no man's land. You're not standing in any country, and you're not, as far as I can determine, doing anything illegal by walking along it. This section is actually a snowmobile trail in winter. I keep pointing at the projector. So these were all silver gelatin prints. They were quite small, and it was important to me to reference a bit the movement in conceptual art in the 1970s, and black and white photography was really a medium that I felt could go in that direction. And also, I mean, I started shooting the project in color, but I was shooting in fall, and there were these beautiful colors, and it was just too overwhelmingly picturesque. So I felt that black and white was more democratic and really focused your attention on the line. And I made another book, actually, you see underneath here, a book which folds out to be about 13 feet long, and it was a GPS track drawing. I started doing these drawings with the GPS, plotting the track according to pace. So the faster I was moving, the lighter the line would become. The slower I was moving, the darker the line would become. And they resemble graphite drawing, but don't photograph well in terms of reproduction. So you don't see anything in the book there. And I also had a video as part of this exhibition. It was the first time that I experimented with video as an artistic medium. And the video is called Walk the Line, and there are 4 static shots of the cut line, and at a certain point I emerge from the foliage and then disappear as I walk along the cut line.